So we will now be starting our first panel discussion for the day. Once again, humbly requesting everyone to please take their seats. The topic for our first session is policy advocacy to accelerate growth. Can I have everyone's attention, please? I really would request for all of you to take your seats. I would like to welcome our moderator for the first session, Mr. Harish Damodaran. A very warm welcome to you and a round of applause for him. He's the National Rural Affairs and Agriculture Editor of the Indian Express. So a very, very warm welcome to you, our first moderator for the day. And with this, let's welcome our esteemed panel for the first discussion. Mr. Atul Chaturvedi, Executive Chairman, Shree Renuka Sugars Limited. I invite you on stage to please take your seats, sir. Can we also have on stage Mr. Prakash Naiknavare, MD, National Federation of Cooperative Sugar Factories Limited, India. Mr. Roshan Tamak, CEO, DCM, Shriram. A very warm welcome to all of you. And yes, we can applaud our panelists. This is our first panel discussion for the day. Our second last panelist, Dr.Tushar Patil, Assistant Vice President, Corporate Strategy, Praj. And our last panelist, Mr. Pankaj Rastogi, Executive Director, Dalmia, Bharat Sugar and Industries Limited. I would like to present our first esteemed panel for the day on the topic, policy advocacy to accelerate growth. And with this, I hand over to our moderator, Mr. Harish Damodaran.
Yeah, I'm audible, I hope. Yeah. Okay, it's always very difficult to hold a panel session just before lunch and just after lunch. Okay, yeah. So what I thought, I'll come straight to the point. We'll start off. I thought we'll take basically two sets of questions. And how long do we have, ma'am? How long do we have? When should this?
We have 50 minutes.
50 minutes. Okay, wonderful. Okay, fine. Okay, so what I'll start with a very simple question. What is the demand for sugar in India going to be in the coming years? And how much is domestic consumption going to increase at all? And like will there be any substitution with cottage sugars? Good and shakar, etc. And how much can we export? And what is it? Raw? Is it white sugar? And where? So we can start off with that. And why don't you start?
Roshan is an expert. So you made me the first guinea pig, huh? Last year, by all accounts, our consumption was closer to about 29.5 million tons or thereabouts, or maybe even closer to 30 million tons domestic consumption. But the only rider in all this was India's relationship with Bangladesh was still reasonably okay, and lot of slippages from the country were actually going into Bangladesh. According to some counts, almost something like 0.8 million ton or 800,000 tons would have moved into Bangladesh. And the other place where Indian cargo was moving was Nepal. The arbitrage available was huge. World markets were very high. Bangladesh didn't have the right kind of foreign exchange positions to import raws for their refineries. So obviously, this method was being worked out big time. So I would say from the 29.5 or 30 million tons, about 1 million ton or slightly more than 1 million ton would have actually gone out of the country. As far as the domestic consumption is concerned, on actual basis, forget the aberrations of Bangladesh or Nepal or whatever, My take would be that we would be closer to about 29 million tons currently. In the good old days, and I'm sure Roshan will probably bear me out, the normal practice was to pencil in an increase of about 0.5 million tons annually in India. This probably may be much more subdued. It may not be, and this we are seeing across sectors. I track both, not only sugar, but I also track edible oil also. Edible oil also, I feel the consumption growth story is facing headwinds. So my take is sugar consumption has remained relatively elevated largely and probably only on account of the fact that the government has ensured that the prices remain very low. Whether it's good policy or not a good policy is for the experts sitting here to decide. But my take is that India probably consumes, and the increase may not be more than 300,000 tons annually now.
Mr. Rastogi, what's your take? We'll come ek ek karke. I think you'll have to switch there.
Harish, on the consumption numbers, I think what Mr. Atul said, we also agree the domestic demand, from earlier growth rates of 3-4%, what we used to talk of, I don't think we are seeing more than, 1.5%, 2% growth. So definitely subdued. So I think in this context, more than the domestic consumption, I think the issue that becomes important is that next year when we are looking at a very large crop, whatever is the balance sheet this year. So two things which become imperative, probably we'll be adding 3-4 million ton. I mean, we don't know the crop today, but then whatever is known, maybe 4 million ton or maybe even more than that, if agroclimatic conditions are all right. So, timely exports policy and an MSP, because MSP may not be so critical today, but it's going to become critical, once we have these numbers, once we have these, kinds of crop coming. So, without these measures, market will probably go into a, free fall. So, again, for sugar mills, for cane areas, everything is going to affect adversely. So, I mean, slightly digress from your question, but it's a related point, so I thought I'll just mention it. Yeah, thank you.
Roshan Dalji, what do you think? You think consumption is plateauing?
So my take is slightly different from on consumption side from two angles. One is in the related sectors, like for example, chocolate sector. Chocolate, that growth is double digit. Second, if you analyze the country map, there are certain pockets like for example, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Bengal, Odisha, which are highly populous, most densely populated. And as we all know that sugar consumption is directly related to economic growth. If economy of these particular regions develop, so I see that sugar consumption should also increase. So this is my perspective. Beverages sector and chocolate sector is growing and will continue to grow. And there is a direct linkage of economic growth with sugar consumption. And particularly in these regions, economy is developing. That is a positive sign for sugar consumption.
So, Mr. Naiknavare, so now we are coming...
One second, on chocolate, what Roshan Bhai is saying is absolutely correct, but the only correction which I would like to make is the growth in the chocolate sector, and we track that as well. The maximum growth is in the dark chocolate, which uses much less sugar. Dark chocolates are... Yeah.
So, Mr. Naiknavare, we come to this whole point about consumption. suppose, say, consumption is plateauing, domestic consumption. So what are the prospects for exports? How much, what should be a sustainable policy? We are only talking of long term, we are not talking of, we are assuming that next year we are going to have a super bumper production. So this is almost like, we are planning for the next season.
Okay, before coming to exports, my view about the domestic consumption, friends, especially the friends who have come from abroad, I must tell you, India's domestic consumption is driven by two engines. Worldwide, it is driven by fundamentals. Yes, our consumption also gets driven by fundamentals, but we have one more engine, that's called sentimental. Small things happening here and there, immediately sentiments are expressed in the sugar prices, either dropping down or going up. So having understood this, despite India being the largest consumer in the world today, and the second one is not even nearby. Though our per capita consumption is just about 20 kgs, but still, we remain to be very sweet people, requiring eating sweet lot of ourselves. Now, coming to exports, Harish, I personally feel that we have created a market for Indian sugar in the world market, and we should be there always. Unfortunately, last year we were absent there, and the advantage was taken by our friends from Brazil, Australia, and Thailand. But smaller the quantity, even this 1 million ton has definitely going to show our presence in the Indian market, international market. And for exports, especially the raw sugar, the refineries expect the ICUMSA that we produce here, the quality of sugar that we have is 600 to 1100 ICUMSA, which is most preferred by the refinery. So therefore, I think we should be in the export on a permanent basis.
Okay, so you are saying that we should be we should keep exporting even in bad years, so that we basically retain a presence in the world market. That there is somebody called India who's still around, that kind of thing, and which is necessary. That's what you are basically pointing out. Mr. Tushar Patil, you are talking about that we should change the concept of sugar into something, sugar industry into a biorefining industry, rather than, and I think even ISMA has, changed its name, right? To whatever, so would you want to talk on that? Then we'll come to ethanol from here.
Thanks for this question. Actually, to see the energy transition of entire thing is happening, and sugar is a backbone of the country. First, coming to the point of this sugar production and utilization, and then conversion of entire sugar industry to the biorefinery industry, I think, sugar production is mostly depend on the crop scenario, feedstock, then its utilization and consumption. These are the three parameters what we assume that these are going to define. Now, by seeing the health and other applications of the industry as a sugar as a molecule, we still think that this production is going to be happen in good way rather than going, say, in downward stream. But more applications has to be developed for the sectors. And that's why this sugar industry sector, we converted terminology and concept for the development of bioenergy. So sugar industry will be known in future as a dream, as a biorefinery, rather than the only sugar context. So sugar biorefinery, if I consider whatever the oil refinery is going to produce, that all products can be produced from sugar refinery. And that sugar refinery will give a different growth to the nation or for the world map to reduce the energy transition fluctuations and climate change. So a lot of products which are coming out, not only say your ethanol as a one product or molasses to ethanol, but as in morning session we heard that aviation fuel is coming in the market. Then biobitumin is coming in the market. But very interestingly, it's known that now bioplastic is another chapter. Bioplastic. So that biochemicals are going to change entire industry sector, along with the byproduct valorization like compressed biogas and all. So if you list down the pattern of oil, entire product line will become, and that will define the production and utilization of sugar in the country for the energy transition.
This is a very interesting concept. I mean, how we move sugar as a commodity to something much more sophisticated than that. Okay, so the second part of the same question, regarding sugar is, how much of ethanol blending is possible, because now we are talking about, sugar as a source of energy. I mean, not just for humans to burn, but also vehicles to burn, as the same. So how much of ethanol blending do you think is realistically possible? Because we are talking of, say, 20%. Can it happen beyond that? And to what extent do we need other substrates? Whether it is rice, whether it is maize. So this is the second part. The first thing, as I said, we looked at the demand for sugar per se. Then I think Mr. Tushar Patil talked about refineries. So I think this round we'll do something on. So why don't you start?
So on this, ethanol question, I think we were cruising along fairly well, but then we hit a major speed bump yesterday. I mean, there was a lot of agitation around it, but then, today after hearing Mr. Gadkari, I'm Jen now. I'm saying, okay, you probably, this is the best that you can get. Anyway, keeping that aside, see, before I answer that question related to how much of blending is possible, let's talk of the second part of your question. At 20% blending, what is the feedstock requirement? How does the balance sheet look like? So 20%, let's try and look at the numbers. For the sake of simplicity, I'll round off these numbers. So at 20% blending, I think the total requirement, ethanol would be about 1100 crore liters, and potable and other uses will be about 400 crore liters. So total 1500 crore liters is the requirement which is going to be there at this. Out of this, sugar can do about 800 crore liters. So 700 crores is grains. Okay. The sugar doing what sugar can do is, of course, dependent on, it's dependent on the crop also. It's dependent on, pricing of ethanol from different feedstocks. What is the kind of diversion which can take place? But assuming a normal stable policy regime, I'm saying these are the numbers. So on 700, so this is sugar is about 800, grain is about 700. So at 700, the feedstock requirement would be, in terms of maize equivalent, would be about 18 million ton a year, or in terms of rice equivalent, it will be 15 million ton. So of course, one feedstock cannot, meet this requirement. So it will have to be a combination of, any of these. And with you're aware that FCI rice now, 2.4 million ton of rice is coming in. So probably, it'll get settled at somewhere, half of it, or maybe about 60% of it coming from the maize, 40% of it, coming from the rice. At these numbers, I don't think a food versus fuel debate kicks into picture at these numbers. Because the stocks that we have, the grain stocks, the kind of balance sheet that we are looking forward to, these numbers are easily, manageable. All of us know that FCI, it's overflowing stocks are. So today it's a problem of plenty rather than other way around. So at these numbers, that's not a debate anymore. Now the question is that, after this, what? After this, where do we, what are the kind of level of blending that we can achieve? See, sugar theoretically can achieve much more, It's a question of the, in bumper years, you can divert much more. And of course, the capacity will have to be, set up for that. So provided there is a right mix of, there is clarity on the crop, there is a right mix of policies. So, sugar can, in my view, maybe another 50%, can probably come from sugar. The balance now feedstock numbers in terms of feedstock, maybe there would start being some pressure on the feedstock availability. But I think the amount of work which is going on in terms of, working on the higher yielding varieties of maize, and India as a country, I think in agricultural we have shown our track record, we have done wonderfully well. So I'm sure this is, that maybe in another 2-3 years the kind of maize yields that we have, maybe we can do a 30-40% improvement on these yields. So 30-40% improvement means about 10-15 million ton of extra maize comes in. So since work is already going on in that direction, I don't think, again, feedstock at higher level blend also, maybe 25%, if you're talking of 25 blend, it's going to be a challenge. I think the challenge is the other way around. We're building up infrastructure, flex fuel vehicles, kind of, proper tax incentives, everything. So which sets this, which this entire ecosystem is set up. So that's where, so probably in near future, 25% is something which according to us is achievable. Of course, policy framework, proper policy framework, long term will have to be in place. But I think that's the number that we can, achieve. Right.
Roshan
Yeah. So I agree as far as the overall number is concerned. So 25% does not seem to be a challenge. From sugarcane sector perspective, I would like to highlight 2-3 things. One, as far as the contribution to ethanol sector is concerned, sugarcane sector is a much more credible, predictable sector. Number two, it does not upset any equation dynamics. Like in case of maize or rice, food versus fuel debate will come, food security issue will come. But in case of sugarcane, it is not so. It's number third, the ecosystem is comparatively robust, and particularly, for example, fuel, because grain-based distillation plants, their additional cost is involved in fuel management also, which is a plus point for sugar sector. And fourth, though it may be temporary, but as on date also, as Atulji mentioned in the morning session, the average price of ethanol produced out of sugarcane feedstocks is much lower than grain. So, in nutshell, my view is that sugarcane is a credible player as far as ethanol blending program is concerned, and in all likelihood, it will continue to progress.
So Chaturvedi, he's saying that basically sugarcane is a dog and the other are just the tail. They can only wag, right? The other sectors.
I know what he's saying. He's a guru, and in fact, whenever I have any doubts, I ring him up. What is your take on this? So I won't dispute what he's saying, but let me add to this what Roshan has said. Countries which are actually diverting food to fuel, like palm in Indonesia or Brazil or Argentina as far as soya, they are heavily surplus in that commodity. As far as India is concerned, to my mind, it is downright, I won't use the word stupid, but I would definitely say it is a bit of a question mark. Why should you be diverting maize when you were, a couple of years back, you were actually exporting, and now you're importing maize, and in the bargain, adding to what Roshan said, the ecosystem, you are pushing a commodity which is screwing the happiness of the poultry industry, the oilseed industry, and with such high incentives being given for maize ethanol, I would not be too surprised if a lot of oilseed area gets diverted to maize. And this we are already seeing as far as soya is concerned. So the nation and the policymakers need to decide what the country needs. Just for the record, India is now importing something like 16 million tons of oil, valued at 140 lakh crores. So that is the kind of forex outgo which India is doing for keeping the edible oil prices in check. Do we want to create more harakiri? On the one side, we are talking in terms of the national mission on edible oil seeds and all that. And on the other, ensuring that the oilseed area keeps coming down and the poultry sector also starts clamoring. Poultry sector was getting maize at around 12, 14 rupees or 16 rupees. Now, close to about 25, 26 or 27 for that matter. And they consume 60% in their feed. So I think it's important that this aspect also needs to be taken care. As far as rice is concerned, it's fair enough because we are surplus in rice. But then we'll have to decide what is more important as far as rice is concerned, diverting it to ethanol or exporting it. India was exporting close to about 40 million tons of rice. We were one of the biggest exporters. No, not 40 million, about 22 million tons, yeah. So that's a big number. So I think we need to be, and as Roshan rightly said, the ecosystem as far as sugar is concerned, there is no other feedstock which is as good as, because it is not disturbing any sector. Your surplus in sugar, diverted it to ethanol, fair enough, no issues. And let me also remind our delegates here that Niti Aayog had actually envisioned that India would be using something like 10.16 billion liters by 2030, now revised to 2025. And out of that, 5.5 billion liters was supposed to be coming from the sugar sector and the balance from grains or damaged food grains or whatever. Now the equation has changed and changed for the worse. Now 60% is coming from the grain sector, which includes maize and rice and blah, 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 and less than 40% from sugar. So that is an aberration which needs correction. And I think the policymakers need to think. And the last but not the least, the criticism against sugar, that it's a water guzzler, has been proved to be wrong by the Agriculture Ministry of this country and by the DPFD of this country, or Department of Food and Public Distribution in this country, that it is not a water guzzler in relation to rice and maize.
Thank you. Mr. Naiknavare, would you like to add?
Yeah, Harish, I would like to give a different dimension, of course, in agreement to all the my fellow panelists. Friends, in my opinion, ethanol has a very bright future. I know this will not be taken well by this audience because we saw a jerk on 6 December 23, stop buying ethanol. Then we saw yesterday, just only see molasses ethanol prices come out. Despite that, I'm making this statement because sitting in Delhi, we are close to the policymakers. We know exactly what's happening here. And that I would like to share with you. Atulji just now mentioned, the Niti Aayog is already making a plan for 25% EBP. No, we are not going to stop at 20%. And that's going to be opening a huge demand for ethanol in the coming years. Number two, 5% in diesel. That is something, the experiments are showing very good results. So sooner or later, we'll see diesel also using 5%. That's again, a tremendous quantity of ethanol required. And third, most important, G20 opened up the Global Biofuel Alliance here. And the Global Biofuel Alliance, one of the driving partner is India with Brazil and US. Now the Global Biofuel Alliance over the last 9 months have registered 36 members of that alliance. You know, those 36 countries, they don't know even E of ethanol. So they're all looking at ethanol coming from India. You know, in the morning, you must have heard Mantriji saying, we can export ethanol. So that is also not a far off dream. So all in all, I think ethanol industry has a good future and we really should look forward to it enthusiastically and hopefully.
So, Mr. Patil, you'll have a lot to add to this. Yeah.
It's true that ethanol industry is having a very bright future. But first, if we go with the basics, as a crop, energy crop or energy cane, sugar cane exploration is not 100% utilization prospect. If we can use each molecule of sugar cane with the co-product valorization type, then see, sometimes it comes that economic viability, as Tamak sir very rightly said, this is the most economical viable solution to produce ethanol from sugarcane. There are routes also to produce it and attract it more. But when you see the carbon content of the crop, as water consumption is one part, what everybody is saying that it is water consuming, but if you go with the life cycle assessment of palm to wheel, then it makes a total difference that which crop is having a highest GHG reduction in case for the standing as a low carbon feedstock for the global assessment. Then it gives you a very right signal that how sugarcane refineries are producing the exact amount or quality of the final product which is going to applied in the global market. Then we can able to export it, because norms are going to come very soon that what is low carbon, ultra low carbon as per GHG footprints, and sugarcane is the crop. If Brazil can qualify for that one, why India not? So if you see that ethanol applications, it's not only say 1G ethanol, it is going to be the advanced biofuels now. So 1G is going to be qualified for the sustainable aviation fuel as per CORSIA norms, which is going to come soon. So 1% indicative mandate and then 5% blending at A to J, SAF into jet fuel is going to create a huge demand for the ethanol industry. And as regulations says that 10% reduction in carbon footprint with the production of the low carbon feedstock is going to set a huge market, and India has a potential to become a hub for the SAF also, which already Japan and everybody is thinking. And as an agrarian country, I think it's not only one product we have to pressurize for the values. We have to create, as very rightly said, ecosystem of the products with creation of a market. So ethanol plus, ethanol plus, ethanol plus, like that if you go on adding, I think each sugar industry can revamp the entire thing with say 10% IRR to 18% IRR with the valorization and creating a carbon market. So that's where link is missing, where policy framework is now going to work very fast on that segment. But sugar industry has having its own potential to create the entire ecosystem and to map with the energy integration, with lowering footprints and proper assessment, with proper technologies to be adopted. Neither it's not only for India but global. We can lead the energy transition of the entire globe. That's what I can say.
Okay, now I come to the last part, which according to me is the most. Yeah, please. You want to add something? Yeah.
Sorry just wanted to add something to see, I think point which Atulji and Tamak raised around that, sugar industry is in the best position to, be this ethanol supplier. What is happening is there are some worrying developments, which are, for example, OMCs are planning large capacities of ethanol, which according to us is not warranted. I'll take a specific example of, UP. UP, there are a lot of maize-based, grain-based distilleries which are coming up. Now, what is happening is that they will take away area from the sugarcane, if they have to, if area under maize has to come in. In any parameter that you see, whether you see water, you see the cost of production, it's not, at a policy level. At a top policy level, it's not wise to, shift ethanol production away from, sugarcane production. I hope someone from the government was here to, but unfortunately there is no one there. But, this is what is becoming suboptimal. That you are, okay, if it's an additional area coming under maize, which is otherwise not cultivable, fair enough, no love lost there. But taking it away from sugarcane and, diverting, this is counterproductive. And this is, because in terms of water instancy, although, officially these numbers have been given, but once you account for, you're producing sugar, you're producing power, once you account for everything, the water impact, water footprint is even lower actually than the numbers that we have talked about. So just wanted to add this here. Thank you.
Just to add to what he said, let's be very clear that the farmer is actually smarter than us. He understands parities much better than us. So the signal which goes to the farmer that if you make maize, if you produce maize, you're going to get this realization. So at the end of the day, he has to take a call whether to go in for sugarcane or pulses or maize or whatever. It'll all be based on what is his return. So if very high incentives for maize will ensure that the area gets diverted to maize, something or the other is going to get sacrificed. And this talk of that India from 2 tons per hectare will become 7 tons or 10 tons or whatever, it's all bunkum. Because what we've seen in soybean is 30 years back, it was still less than 1 ton.
Yeah, 1.5 ton. Yeah.
Now, today also it is less than 1 ton. So, there you are.
So the next one which I want to come to is what is going to happen to sugarcane production, because now we have been seeing, a lot of biotic and abiotic stresses, so far we assume that sugarcane is a very hardy crop, only water is the only binding constraint. You give water, then everything is okay. But now, like, for example, this time in UP, we have seen red rot and too much of, I think, mono cropping of a single variety, I think CO 0238. In Maharashtra, we have had flowering, early premature flowering. Are we doing enough in the field of breeding? I think this is something which we need to look at. So Mr. Tamak, if you can start off by and I'll have Mr. Naiknavare also.
Yes. So, responding to your question, Harish ji, sugarcane is the heart of sugar sector, as we know. And one additional point of the previous discussion, I would like to supplement that sugarcane is one of the most organized crop. In fact, that focus should be like if you want to promote maize plants or grain-based plants, those should be promoted in the area which are not covered by sugarcane, so that you can organize the remaining space, not sugarcane space. So coming back to this issue, as far as sugarcane is concerned, there are 2 parts. One is input side, another is output side. On output side, government has done a lot, is doing a lot, and it is being discussed. A lot of discussion is happening, whether it is export, not import, but second is MSP, third is ethanol blending program. And all aspects are being taken care by in terms of policy framework. But as far as input side is concerned, and first and foremost is varietal breeding. Second is mechanization. So these areas are scattered. For example, this breeding program is being implemented by many research stations, which are controlled by ICR and respective state governments, and like VSI. So there are multiple organizations. There is a lack of comprehension and holistic approach in this. And as we all have seen, that how a variety can change the complete landscape. We have witnessed very recently in case of 238. It has revolutionized the sector. It has increased manifold the income of the farmers and revived the industry. So, but that thrust and focus and approach is lacking in case of sugarcane breeding. We need coordinated efforts for this particular initiative. Similarly, for mechanization, there are different policies in different states. So that also, because scarcity of labor is there, and it is becoming day and day difficult for farmers to arrange labor for agricultural operations. So mechanization is also need of the hour. There are multiple other activities also, but let's remain focused on these 2 things: breeding program and mechanization. So my suggestion over here is to coordinate effectively with all the agencies involved in breeding, agencies like states, commissionerates, research stations, and academic institutions, and of course ministries, multiple ministries. For example, today, output side issues are taken care by DAPD, but input side issues are taken care by Agriculture Ministry. So who is the owner of this thing? Therefore, I propose that a sort of organization like National Sugarcane Mission should be thought over so that in a comprehensive manner, holistic manner, and well-coordinated manner, we can take care of all the input side related issues and effective coordination can be done. Because the importance, as Honorable Minister has also mentioned in the morning session, importance of sugarcane is much more in today's time. It is not only ensuring the sugar security for the country, but also ethanol blending program. Sugarcane will continue as the mainstay of ethanol blending program, and besides others like CBG, sustainable aviation fuel. So some sort of this organization should be thought over and it should be implemented.
Mr. Naiknavare, what should a national sugarcane mission do?
Friends, I'm sharing this as a sugarcane grower myself. I grow sugarcane, so I know what exactly sugarcane is like. I call this kalpataru. You know, kalpataru vriksha in Sanskrit is a tree of which all the parts are used. Not a single part is wasted. So this is the only crop in the entire crop pattern that sugarcane is used. All its parts are used. Number two, I am sharing with you a game changer. There's a new technology of artificial intelligence which we are just hearing, listening, reading, and watching. But I have seen it happening on the ground. Artificial intelligence effect on the growth of sugarcane, its girth, its height, the content, and the weight. This is happening at Krishi Vignan Kendra, Baramati, in district Pune, where I had spent entire day myself and saw it that the sensors are put in the soil, and with the artificial intelligence technology available, now the alerts are sent to the farmers on their mobile. Look, there is a moisture stress, better give irrigation. Look, there is excess moisture, stop giving irrigation. Look, there is some ABCD pest and diseases coming beforehand. So there is no preventive control measure. He is the preventive measure he is suggesting. Fertilizers, NPK dose, all those alerts are going to the farmer in the regional language again. And this is something really mind-boggling. And I see, Harish, very soon, artificial intelligence will help the sugarcane industry in India, where the area is almost plateaued. We have a limitation of area, 5.5 million hectares that's all, maybe max 6 million hectares, but it will not go beyond that. But we need sugarcane. We need sugarcane not only for producing sugar, but for bioethanol, for our other uses. And therefore, I for one feel that this new technology available in the form of artificial intelligence is going to change the face of the sugarcane industry in India.
So Dr. Patil, you are a PhD in agriculture, So what would you suggest as far as sugarcane breeding is concerned for the crop of the future, for the future industry, as you said, for reimagining the sugar mill as a biorefinery, right? So
of course, so it will see it's a breeding. So I done my PhD in the same subject. So I like to share one experience when US has come out with the corn. They have a structured mapping what to produce from what, and they prepared a cluster, but they designed GM. So we, as a natural source of sugarcane breeding, we have a very strong agri background for the different farming models also. So as a C4 type of crop, any C4 type of crop can be accommodated as an intercrop with the sugarcane. That is the beauty of sugarcane. It's not hampering the other crops' growth also. So crops like sweet sorghum, what NSI is also implementing that one. So sugarcane plus sweet sorghum is the model where productivity, per acre productivity can be increased by say 10 to 15%, which reflect in the ethanol production. But as a biorefinery requirement, we can say now cellulosic terms are coming out. So cellulosic ethanol, which we produce it from the bagasse. So higher the cellulosic content, lower the lignin, which can be the part of say biovitamin plus say 2G ethanol as a bolt-on model to existing sugar refinery. that type of with less thrash percentage, but gaining, returning the high organic content with the thrash. That how the breeding objective should be defined by the breeding research industries, research institutes, to define a crop not only say for the food, but fuel, fodder, and feed too. That's how it has to be designed properly, and it not required every time GM has to come in the picture. But there are a lot of races in the India which have those traits, and see, genetically modified and genetically engineered. These are the two confusing words GES is considering. So if I do the GE, genetic engineering, not modified, within the gene, if I sequence a lot of things, then I think it can be a crop which will give all those four products what requirement of the nation. So that way we have to see this crop.
So I'm very thankful for this session. I mean, as a journalist, I mean, I learned a lot. And the good thing about this session is I think we were talking not about how much is going to be the production this year. And, you know, we were looking a little into the future. And we are assuming that next year is going to be a, you know, bumper crop. And so the time to prepare long term is now, you know. We have to see what this thing is. So I must thank all the panelists. I mean, it was a very nice. I mean, it was a learning experience for me. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was our first session of the day. And thank you to all the wonderful gentlemen on the stage for that very enlightening talk, the conversation, the sharing of the ideas on the topic policy advocacy. Thank you so much for that. I would like to welcome on stage Mr. Kiran Vadwana to please join us and felicitate this esteemed panel of speakers. A warm welcome to you, sir. Can we please welcome him on stage with a huge round of applause, everybody? We'll begin with felicitating our moderator, Mr. Harish Damodaran. Can we please felicitate Mr. Atul Chaturvedi, Executive Chairman, Shree Renuka Sugars Limited. And can we have a little bit of energy from the audience? I know this is post-lunch, but let's keep the enthusiasm going. Mr. Prakash Naiknavare, MD, National Federation of Cooperative Sugar Factories Limited, India. Mr. Roshan Tamak, CEO, DCM Shriram. Dr.Tushar Patil, Assistant Vice President, Corporate Strategy, Praj. And lastly, Mr. Pankaj Rastogi, Executive Director, Dalmia Bharat Sugar and Industries Limited. May I please request you all to please come together for a group photograph? All right, let's give a huge thunderous applause for this one. Thank you very much, gentlemen.